Hello, good evening. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for spending this warm evening with us here in District 2 for the city's community budget listening session. I'm Amanda Garcia Snell. I'm the city's Chief Engagement Officer. Just a few notes of housekeeping, and then I'll pass it over to City Administrator Raymond Lee and the District 2 counselors. So hopefully you had a chance to see that there are bathrooms right outside and down the hall if you need those, and there are snacks on the first floor. And I think that's all the logistics to share with you. So with that, I will pass it to City Administrator Lee, who will share a few budget remarks, and then he will pass it to the District 2 counselors, who will share their welcoming remarks, and then we will move into the testimony portion.
All right, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Hopefully I'm speaking to the mic clearly enough for everyone to hear me. Thank you for everyone joining us this evening. It's always good to see the community show up for sessions like this to really hear your thoughts, your feedback, your concerns, and what do you see as potential opportunities as council starts to deliberate on the mayor's proposed budget. Tonight is about listening to you and really just hearing your thoughts on these things as we move forward with an adoption of a budget that will happen in the latter part of next month in June. I want to start out with grounding us in where we are in the budget process right now. Several weeks ago, the mayor produced a proposed budget that he submitted to the city council for consideration. At this current time, the council is still digesting that budget and working with their teams and working with people in the community to really look at what are those problem areas within the budget that they feel like it needs to be addressed or be amended before we move forward with an adopted budget. This is one of the biggest policy documents that our council will be approving. This really helps sets the direction of where we're heading as a city, the things that we are prioritizing as a city, and the things that we look forward to be successful in as a city. The key component of that is how we deliver services as a city. And that's something that we will be talking about as we go through this budgeting process. To kind of give you some high-level overview of where we are with the budget this year. The budget for this proposed year is roughly $8.5 billion. Now, I know for a lot of people that sounds like an enormous budget. A huge portion of that budget is in restricted funding. We're roughly looking at $1 billion that funds our general fund services. Those general fund services are our police, our fire, our homeless services, our parks and recreation, so our HR, our finance, all the core things that we do as a city in providing services to the everyday Portlander is provided out of that general fund. Coming into this proposed budget session, we knew we had a deficit in our ability to provide those core services, roughly looking at $170 million of deficit that we had coming into this upcoming year. We were looking at how do we make target cuts that still maintain the core functions of our city and our ability to provide those core functions still at a high level for our organization in the mayor's proposed budget. Some of those things had to happen and some difficult conversations had to happen as it relates to what was being moved forward in that budget. One thing that I would like to share in this next portion is kind of what are some of those things that were protected in this proposed budget. What you have right now is all 31 fire stations remaining open. You also have all community centers and parks remaining open. Every police officer and investigator stays on the job. Investments in affordable housing continue, and work to help unsheltered Portlanders move into permanent housing continues. But you do have some reductions in this budget, some reductions that will cause some impact to our ability to provide services. You do see reduced shelter operations and street outreach. You see a scale back materials, technology, and administrative support for our police bureau. You see fewer engine units and reduced hours for our fire bureau system. And you see streamlining and reductions across our city operations. These changes aim to minimize impacts on frontline services while addressing the city's financial realities. One thing I was sharing with you in this as well. Every year, you're starting to hear a recurring theme, a theme of cuts, reductions, and not having enough resources. We have, as a leadership team, charged ourselves with how do we develop a 5-year model to help pull ourselves out of this predicament so every year we're not in the same condition where we're talking about making reductions. This is really stabilizing ourselves as an organization and really trying to build a financial model that is resilient to the economy and the things that we know all Portlanders want to see us provide in the form of services. These are not easy decisions. And I really tip my hat to the council who have to really make some tough decisions as it relates to what may move forward in this budget and what adjustments may be made in this budget to be responsive to the needs of this community. There's hope and opportunity in this as well. As we look at this, we want to make sure that we're building a strong organization that can provide services and enhance the quality of life for everyone in our community. And we're steadfast to that challenge and looking forward to the opportunity to be able to serve everyone in this community at a high level. For individuals who don't know, which I believe everyone in this room probably does know, we had a shift in the form of government that we have now. My role is new within the organization. This role that I'm serving in right now is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the councilors. But this role is supposed to take the mayor's vision, the council's priorities, and build a strategic direction for how this organization move forward. So we don't have silos within our organization or bureaus within our organization that only report to one elected. They're coming to one professional staff. We want to make sure that we're building an organization that is professionally managed and ran, and we'll be looking at how we do this better. We want to make sure we have a government that's more efficient, effective, and economical in how we deliver services to the community, and we're committed to that as an organization. In closing, I will say we have challenges ahead of us, but those challenges do not deter us from the mission that we have at hand. We know we can't do this by ourselves. We need the engagement from the community to help shape how we move forward as a city. And we look forward to that collaboration and that partnership and that dialogue and engagement to help shape not only our present, but our future. And this is important times for our city as a whole. This is a pivotal time to really shape the trajectory and the future of our community. And I look forward, and I know this council looks forward to shaping that with you as a collective unit. So thank you. I know there's a lot of information within this budget document, and we're here to listen and answer any questions that you may have after we hear testimonies as well. And I will turn it over to Councilor Ryan at this point in time. Oh, Pertigini is next. Who was next to me? Sorry.
It would have made more sense for me to sit right by you, but I didn't look at the order we had agreed on. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Ilana Pertilgini. I'm one of your 3 District 2 counselors. And I really appreciate you all showing up to share with us what your priorities are in this year's budget. At one of our first budget sessions, somebody got up to testify and said, you know, people often describe a budget as a moral document. And this year, this person contended we would not be able to pass a budget that was a moral document because the cuts are just too deep. And I want to start us out there because, as the city administrator said, we've had year over year of cuts, and we're at the point where We don't have a lot of choices but to cut things that people care about. So as I look at this budget, what I am trying to keep in mind is how we focus on what we want to build 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And how we make sure that the difficult decisions that we make today allow us to continue the momentum that we have been building for our city and continue reaching toward what we want Portland to look like a few years from now, instead of inadvertently holding us back. How do we make sure that the difficult choices we make, the difficult cuts that we have to make, don't turn us in the wrong direction and preserve the most important services that we can't muddle our way through without? Last year during the budget, I was really focused on reinvesting in some cuts that were made around parks maintenance and our community centers and programs. I was focused on ensuring that we added some resources for small businesses to the budget and making sure that our Office of Violence Prevention and a few other key programs, the things that save us money in the long run, were funded, were included in the budget. And I was heartened this year to see the mayor take a different approach, a stronger approach to all three of those things in the budget. So this year, I'm looking at how we make sure that the programs that allow working families to have access to some of the resources that we depend on are fully funded. How do we make sure that we're making those responsible decisions, that we're setting ourselves up for the future, that we're not cutting in ways that hurt our families and our chances to grow stronger? How do we make sure that the resources that you rely on, those core services that the city offers, continue to be available, that we continue to have safety responses, that we continue to have not just our parks and community centers open, but available at the times when we need them, that we continue to make the small targeted changes that ensure that Portland is the best place in the country to raise a family. We don't get there overnight, but we have to start now. In general, I think that the mayor's proposed budget did a good job at a high level. There are some things I want to change, but at a high level, I think he was looking at how do we do this? What buckets do we look at for cuts in a balanced way? When you get down to a medium level, though, I've been asking a lot of questions about who the winners and losers are. What neighborhoods are taking disproportionate impacts in the cuts? Who gets less? And I'm asking a lot of questions about implementation. If we make this cut that the mayor has proposed, where does that happen? What does that actually look like on the ground, and how will our bureau directors make things work? So tonight, sitting here with all of you, I'm really interested in hearing what you're most concerned about in the budget and what you're most worried about. Because I'm guessing that there are a lot of things that each person in this room are reading a little bit differently, because those implementation impacts aren't always clear in the first cut. And what we hear from you tonight, we can take back with us and make sure that we are asking the right questions when we're sitting down with the deputy city administrators and with the bureau directors, so that we know exactly what each of the things in the mayor's proposed budget could lead to. And we can make those amendments to the budget to get it right, so that we don't have neighborhoods in District 2 that are getting a disparate impact, so that we don't have people within our city who are really feeling the hits more than others. I want to work through this with all of you. I want to make sure that we come out with a budget that does the least harm, and that we continue to build our city into the best place to raise a family. Thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I think I'm turning it over to Councilor Ryan. Is that right? Okay.
A sandwich tonight in the middle. Thank you, Amanda, and your team for setting this up. I appreciate all of you. And thank you to University of Oregon, my alma mater, for hosting tonight. You can't hear me. I got to eat this mic. Can you hear me now? All right, you got to really kiss the mic tonight. I just want to say it's great to see so many people here from District 2 on a Monday night. Monday night events are always the least attended, according to data. So this is a great sign. You all care deeply about our budget. I'm not surprised. I want to share with you some of my thoughts about the budget process, this year's budget process. I see the budget as the 26-27 operations plan. That's what it is. It's like, we're going to put money into this, and here's how we're going to execute our services to serve all of you. When the mayor released his budget, I wanted to be 100% on board. However, I have been uncomfortable with some parts of it. And of course, I've told this to the mayor as recently as this morning. I think he did the hard work of closing a $160 million budget gap, which in any circumstances is a really big task. And none of us on the council had to do that. So I have a lot of respect for the person who's had to look at the entire city and figure out how to do that. Let that sink in. 160 million is a big number. And in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to take some bold action. We need to remind ourselves that unsafe and unmaintained public spaces, including sidewalks, streets, and parks, is why our business licenses are down. It's why our property taxes are depleted and deflated. Our revenue is basically flat. And while our fixed costs continue to rise, that's why we're here. We have to get back to getting currency flowing in our city again. We need to remind ourselves that unsafe and unmaintained public spaces, including sidewalks, streets, I already did that. I wanted to see the public safety prioritized, and I want to see more strategy overhauling our top heavy administration. We have over 27 bureaus and offices. The goal is to preserve services to Portlanders, but we need to streamline those services and focus on customer service. I'll be looking closely at whether city administration has done everything it can to reduce overlap, control cost, and deliver the customer service and improved efficiency that Portlanders were promised in this new form of government. My starting position would have been to not cut anything from public safety. I don't know how we are supposed to justify this to community members, especially after our council strategy meeting earlier this year, where all councilors, all of us, and if you've watched our meetings, that's kind of remarkable, all 12 of us decided that response times were a priority. Response times, when you call 911, someone picks up the phone and you get quick service. That was something all of us agreed should be a top priority. A city should provide two things no matter what: fast response when you call 911 and clean public spaces, meaning our sidewalks, streets, and parks. That's non-negotiable for me because I want to get revenue back up. And I've listened and listened and listened for the past 6 years. My businesses have closed down, and that's always at the top of their list. I hear almost every day since I was elected from friends that they've been struggling, and I continue to, it aches my heart to hear how many multi-generational Portlanders have left our city. And I don't want that to happen anymore. We've got to preserve who loves this place, who continues to invest in it, and make sure that we continue to serve them with much better customer service. As such, there's a couple things I'm looking forward to listening to in your testimony that I would like you to consider when you're testifying. One is, are you committed to Portland? Are you committed to this city? And what keeps you here? The second is, are you considering exiting the city? What would make you want to stay if that's the case? So I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. I know it's fluid, and I appreciate all of you for being part of this engagement so we can continue to hopefully continue to make some fluid adjustments as we move forward. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Samir Kanal. I am the third of three District 2 counselors. First, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. One of the goals and why I ran is to ensure that when you come to something like this, it matters. I did community engagement at the city for a few years prior to running for office, and I felt that it often didn't. And I think that's something that hopefully this new form of government is able to achieve more consistently. I think there's been improvements and there's also more to go, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you also to Raymond Lee, our city administrator, to Amanda and team, to Laura and team, media for being here as well. I worked in public safety, and so a lot of what I'm going to talk about relates to that area. But I'm going to give some big concepts and then talk about, I might give an example or two. I think our budget should reflect your priorities, and that starts with things like affordability, district fairness, the feeling that your neighborhood And a lot of neighborhoods in District 2 have felt neglected, and you're right to feel neglected historically, because you have been. And then a responsive government. And that means investing in a functional government and navigation through it, things like 311 that can help you get through to the different parts of our government. It looks like a holistic public safety system that focuses on prevention. And that's things like the Office of Violence Prevention and Ceasefire, in addition to response. It's data-driven solutions to our homelessness challenge, looking at what's been working and also what hasn't, and adjusting based off of that. And it's growing our economic pie so that we're making it possible for everyone who wants to live in Portland to do so, because there's a lot of people who want to live here, and many of you can, and there's also a lot of people who would love to be District 2 residents and can't be. To be a little bit more specific, I think there's a few things that we need to look at that are not cutting things that save us money in the long run. I'll point to fire, where there's two programs, the chat program and two-person rescues. These are things that in the long run save us a lot more money than the alternatives we would have to go to if they weren't there. Not neglecting underserved communities. Last year, all three of us stood up for St. John's and the community center there. And we're gonna have to do that again because they're gonna lose in the mayor's proposed budget their only fire engine, and that's unacceptable. Preserving frontline staff over management bloat. And I say that as a person who was a manager in the city government. I started out as an analyst, became a manager one. My position probably shouldn't have been a manager. I'm glad that it was. It was good for me. But I think there's some issues, especially as you go higher up the chain with the number of layers we've created. It shouldn't take you 9 layers of supervision to get to the decision maker. And we've had some examples of 7, 8, 9 people between frontline staff and that. Also, prioritizing doing over planning. I think sometimes it's better to get something 80% of the time, 80% right on time than to get 100% right too late. And we often make that mistake, I think, at the city. Assessment, metrics, and accountability. I'm really excited for the new performance office that the administrator has focused on. And I want to take that, I think contracts is where it starts at the city, but it's not just there. Making sure that when we do something, we are aware that it works and adjusting if it doesn't. Activation events, tourism, street plazas. I'm a big believer in that. I think they're a way to bridge from the Portland we have to the Portland we want, especially downtown. Where a lot of the changes we're going to make aren't going to yield anything right away, but we can fill in the gap with things like this last weekend, where we had, Cinco de Mayo, and we had the Portland Saturday Market, and we had some May Day events, and we had 503 Day. And these are the sorts of things that can help make our downtown functional while we get from here to there. And I know downtown seems like, why am I talking about it? Because it's in we're in District 2 and it's in District 4, but it's a lot of where the tax base comes from, and that pays for everything. And finally, preserving the will of the voters. And this has to do with things like parks and PSEF. If you told us that we can have this money for this purpose and only this purpose, I don't think we have the right to change that on you. And I think that's a really important thing that I think gets forgotten sometimes when the exigency argument gets made, the urgency, the budget cuts, the situation we're in. But I don't think we have the right to do that. So these are the things that I'm looking at as we go forward. But I'm excited to hear about what you want. And if I keep talking, that'll delay it even further. So I'm going to stop here and pass it back to Amanda. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, counselors. So I just wanted to make sure that folks that are interested in providing public testimony had a chance to sign up downstairs. If not, there's still time to do that. I'm going to go over a couple of things to know about providing testimony. So first, tonight is about hearing from you all. It's not a back and forth conversation. We are making space for people who live in district and have not had a chance to provide comment to the listening session yet to go first. And then if we have time, we'll hear from other folks as well. I do want to just share that we have this cue that shows the speaking order. We also have some seats down in front. So I'll call groups of 6 or 8, I think we probably have space for. And the first 3 that make it down here can line up on this side, and the rest can have a seat in these chairs. And then I will mark as we're going through so you can see what order we're in. Let's see. And then we have about an hour and 40 minutes for testimony, and we will limit each comment to 2 minutes. So please do your best to stick to that time. We will have a timer up on the screen so you can see where you are at in your speaking time. And Please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. And please declare if you're a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being muted or asked to leave. Please know that this meeting is also being recorded. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. If you have questions or you prefer to not provide testimony, oral testimony, you can scan the QR code in the budget brochure that was available to you downstairs and provide comment directly into the budget testimony form on the city's budget webpage. If you would like to write down a question, we can get a Post-it note for you to write that down. I'm sorry, a comment. We can get a Post-it note so you can write that down, and then we can enter that into the testimony page for you. And then as a reminder, we will not be answering questions tonight in this forum. Tonight is an opportunity for community to share your feedback and for the city to listen. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call the first 6 people: Nick Coffey, Rory Reed, Aaron Wagner, Adrian Feldstein, Alice Walker. In whatever order you arrive is great.
Good evening. My name is Nick Coffey. Okay. My name is Nick Coffey. I'm a District 2 resident. I urge you to restore full funding to the Community Health Division, also known as the CHAT program. CHAT is a mobile integrated health program serving Portland's most vulnerable residents, many whom rely on repeated 911 calls to access health care, an inefficient, inequitable, and extremely costly reality. Health outcomes are worsening nationally and locally, and we know federal solutions aren't coming. It's time to lead and innovate at the local level. CHAT is that innovation. Over the past 4 to 5 years, CHAT has helped thousands by meeting people where they are, connecting them to care, reducing unnecessary emergency calls, and freeing up EMS and fire resources for true emergencies. It also saves money by reducing overall fire engine dispatches and avoidable ER visits, making it an extremely fiscally responsible investment as well. Healthcare partners like Care Oregon and HealthShare have already bought in, and the city should continue its support despite these budget challenges. These calls are not going away. Who will we send instead? CHAT teams are on the front lines of the opioid crisis, responding to approximately 84% of overdose calls downtown while in service, saving lives with Narcan, administering effective withdrawal medication, establishing real connections to treatment, shelter, and support. CHAT has built strong partnerships with local clinics and county services, and their follow-up teams ensure people don't fall through the cracks again, or worse, end up another number on the streets. This model works. Programs like CHAT are proven nationwide, where even nearby communities, Salem and Clackamas County, are now replicating CHAT. There has never been a greater need when we talk about health equity, innovation, and responsible spending. CHAT delivers. Each of you saw firsthand on ride-alongs last year. We'll hope you'll remember that impact. Portland's health challenges are growing. This is not the time to scale back what works and saves money. Please restore full funding to CHAT. We will continue to prove its value. Thank you. Oh. Oh.
Rory Reed. I live in District 2, and I am not speaking on behalf of my employer tonight. I personally support public safety. I wouldn't make any cuts there at all until I see at least national average response times, just asking for middle of the road. I also wouldn't support any Vision Zero improvements whatsoever, at least until after we have 2 crews grinding full time all winter, and then the same 2 crews paving all summer. Let's get the basic stuff done and then do everything else. I think actually more important, when I listen to you all talk about 5-year plans and performance metrics, why are we talking about performance metrics when you don't even have a profit and loss statement? Like, you give money to a bureau. The bureau says we need all this money and we can't do this without this money. So you give them some of the money or all of the money or whatever. You have no idea what the money's actually spent on, do you? You don't literally know how they're spending the money. You don't know if the money's going to shovels. You don't know if it's going to socks. You don't know if it's going to retreats. You don't know if it's going to trash bags. So you're really just flying totally blind. And we're never going to get the government that we are paying handsomely for until that government is actually trying to give us what we're paying for. And it's not a surprise. Constituents don't sort of see this. You literally have to work in it to see it. But until you fix that kind of core basic reporting information, this place is never, ever, ever going to work. I'd love to see the mayor put a little bit more time into that. I understand his focus, but he is a business leader, so can we get some business? Thank you.
I just wanted to ask folks to refrain from clapping. If you could do, jazz hands or whatever silently, that would be helpful.
Are we? Okay, good. My name's Erin. I live in Cully. Thank you for listening tonight. Trees are infrastructure. Yesterday, I worked an 8-hour shift outside, which is very normal for me. The 90-degree heat, though, in early May was not normal. Luckily for me, I had a nearby maple tree that I could take much appreciated shade in. An investment in green infrastructure is an investment in Portland's future as we struggle to adapt to this climate crisis. The current budget proposal cuts some PSEF-funded urban forestry staff who are diligently trying to improve the livability and safety of Portland by developing equitable tree canopy. Currently, over half of Portland neighborhoods, including my own, do not meet the 25% tree cover goal because of systemic inequalities that have put the burden of tree care on individuals and thus created neighborhoods of heat islands. Trees pay for themselves in terms of public health and infrastructure, eventually. Trees protect the health of the young, the old, and those of us who work outdoors. They reduce the burden on the electric grid. They support small businesses by giving patrons access to shade-cooled sidewalks. They provide relief for houseless individuals without air conditioning. They encourage the use of multimodal transportation. I get the painful need to prioritize in this budget, but I will say that graffiti removal and houseless camp sweeps do not meaningfully improve my livability and safety in the ways that well cared for street trees do. To lose more urban forestry staff means that the city loses that training and experience, and that's hard and expensive to build back. Please protect that PSEF money for voter-approved purposes, like urban forestry. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Adrienne Feldstein. I'm a public health physician. I'm also co-chair of the Urban Forestry Commission and a member of the Parks Advisory Board. I also chair their Finance and Sustainability Work Group. First, I want to say that the overarching issue here is we don't have a sustainable funding plan for parks. I know that the commissioners in District 2 are really aware of that, have deep history in parks, and we really look to you and to our new administrator to help us make a move on this, finally, to have this be a signature act from you. The long history of cuts in excess of overall city cuts to Parks and Rec is not the will of the voters. The voters have over and over supported parks. They want full funding, they want full maintenance, and our public recreation, green spaces, and healthy canopy are not optional. They're actually life expanding and enhancing. So the proposed cuts to Portland Parks and Rec and for tree protection will contribute to an already declining canopy that we know is happening in Portland, and that it will create development bottlenecks, prevent achievement of city climate goals, and will undermine the voter mandates that we've already received from the recent Parks Levy and the Portland Clean Energy Fund. And our parks will be less welcoming and safe and will provide reduced services to the most vulnerable, many of whom are in District 2. So in order to grow our tree canopy, we need to not only plant trees, but we need to protect the canopy. And the prior 30% reduction in tree permitting and regulation staff and the move of those staff to the permitting department has failed. We predicted that wait times went from 2 to 8 weeks. And now we're proposing increasing that from the 30% cut to 50%, and that will be untenable. The city will not be able to administer its laws, Title 11 laws regarding the canopy. Cuts to maintenance of parks is on top of an $800 million backlog in maintenance. So please reduce the cuts to Parks and Rec, stop the cuts for pre-protection and regulation, and return the staff to an integrated program in urban forestry. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Alice Christine Walker, and I'm the Land Use Chair in East Columbia Neighborhood Association. East Columbia is a HUD-designated frontline community. When voters passed the Portland Clean Energy Fund, they were promised that those closest to the impacts of historical neglect would see the investment first. That promise is being broken. We have learned that these funds are being deployed in our name without our consent to effectively devalue our land. At this moment, our community is deeply questioning if the BPS and the BES can be trusted with the fiduciary responsibility of PSEF. In the CCIL process, these bureaus have failed the most basic test of administrative integrity. The city is using East Columbia as a sacrificial lamb for FEMA and the FEMA BIOP compliance. The city is stripping our buildable land to provide mitigation credits for industrial expansion and flood insurance discounts for wealthier neighborhoods. We believe that this is a de facto taking of what little equity we have left. It is incredibly painful to hear this city discuss a discretionary surplus, why we have suffered from historical disinvestment. In East Columbia, our children are driven up the streets to get to their school bus stop. Our disabled residents are put at risk because we have no sidewalks. This is a basic health and safety issue for us. How can there be a surplus when regulatory overreach is gutting our property values and our children have no safe way to get to school? We want to further advocate for dedicating funding for the Noise Control Office to protect our basic rights to reasonable enjoyment of our properties from bad industrial actors. The city is performing equity while systematically silencing a diverse community. When our public testimony vanishes from your portals, it isn't a technical glitch. It is systematic omission. We ask you to stop the discretionary spending and honor the voter intent. Invest in our safety, invest in our city's food sovereignty, invest in our ability to provide affordable housing, invest in Portland's future, invest in us. We are here to stay. We are the ones who make this city worth living in. We implore the city, stop treating East Columbia like a commodity on a map and start treating us like the community that we are. Thank you kindly for your time.
Okay, Nicholas Hash. Oh, 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 sorry, you probably are. Maya Spencer, Savannah Joy, Barbara Wharton, Mike Dunn Bernstein, and Travis Blevins.
Greetings, Council, and thank you for hearing my testimony. My name is Nicholas Hash, and I am not a special interest group. I am an 8-year resident of District 2, and over that time, I have worked in the city in roles ranging from back of house service, vehicle porter, event and community organizer, and even a Sun school teacher, among many others. While doing that work, I pushed myself through the highest levels of education, also here in Portland. Go Vikes. And today, I'm proud to apply that earned knowledge in sustainable urban policy and public health as both a city employee and a union organizer for CPPW. Now, I'll be clear, I'm here speaking for myself and my community, not as a representative of the city. What we're being sold in this budget is quite simply a contradiction. We are told by the mayor that Portland is on the verge of a boom, yet in the same breath, we're asked to accept cutting service level staff by 20% by shifting millions into the budgets of the mayor and city administrator's office. That is not a vision of growth that working people can recognize. It is a vision that asks those already carrying the load to somehow carry more with less again. And respectfully, that deserves more than polite concern. It deserves scrutiny and it deserves outrage. I won't spend your time reciting statistics today that have been well addressed by my colleagues and will be addressed again by my fellow speakers today. And I believe the lived reality of the city is evidence enough to make my points. I do want, however, to address the recent conversation around monetizing public assets. In theory, this is a promising idea. I'm literally a published expert in this, so you can believe me. In practice, it currently feels like 7 different people are using the same phrase to describe 7 different entirely different strategies. If we are serious about activating public spaces, then that work must be rooted in the community. It cannot mean handing over access and control to national organizations whose primary relationship to Portland is extraction. We've seen that model before. We've lived through its consequences. And I, for one, am not interested in sitting through another round of throwing our arms up and singing, "We had no idea this could happen," while our city's creative and financial capacity is once again drained by a conglomerate. If you want this city to work and truly work, you start at its roots. You empower Portland's creative economy. You unburden local business owners who are struggling under layers of cumulative reactive regulation that we don't even remember why we started. And you give the bureaus the tools and the direction to support that community-driven activation. That's how you develop resilient, regenerative, and localized partnerships to increase revenue creation and retention. Portland's identity, its culture, its resilience, its appeal comes from its people. Am I out?
Yeah.
Okay. So I urge you, reset the approach, empower the people of Portland to be who they are, and empower your bureaus to support that work effectively. Don't fleece the people that it's supposed to serve. Thank you.
My name is Maya Spencer. I'm a senior community engagement coordinator with Portland Parks and Recreation, a city employee for over 20 years and even longer as a resident. So Dan Ryan, I'm staying here to answer your question. And I'm a proud CPPW union member. But tonight I'm speaking on my own behalf as a District 2 resident and an everyday Portlander. I'm no stranger to budget cuts in my time at the city, but this year's process has felt especially opaque and at times dehumanizing. I'm going to focus on the core realignment package. First, this proposal lacks details. You're being asked to approve the elimination of 69 positions with very little detail about what these roles do or what happens if they disappear. For other proposed cuts, there are at least brief descriptions in the budget materials. These 69 positions deserve the same level of transparency and consideration. I appreciate councilors have already pushed for questions on this, and I urge you to do more so of that at the work session coming up this Friday. Second, we need to be clear about what we're actually saving and from where. The mayor's highlighted proposal said that $21 million would be saved from this package, but then it also says that only $3.5 million of that comes from the general fund. The remaining $17.5 million comes from other funds. And to put that into percents, because I know we like to think that way, that means only 17% of these savings support the general fund gap. At the same time, the budget is also adding 4 new high-level management positions to the city administrator's office at a cost of $2.1 million in general funds. And the equity cuts are the 3rd highest of the core realignments at $1.5 million. These contrasts deserve scrutiny. Third, this isn't guaranteed to bring to save us money. For example, the communications realignment already happened and combined the role of the service area management with engagement to save money. Now I'm hearing that Public Works may need to create a new manager position because the current structure leaves our manager with too many direct reports. This is a real example of how these changes will create unintended consequences. Finally, there's been a lack of meaningful engagement with staff, and I'm an engagement coordinator. If you want real input, you have to involve people before decisions are made, not after. Early engagement isn't just a courtesy, it's the difference between people feeling like participants and feeling like props. So I just want to urge you to ask for more detail and ensure decisions are made with transparency, care, and a full understanding of their impacts. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Wharton. I'm a District 2 resident and a member of Trees for Life Oregon. I'm here tonight to comment about the proposed budget's impact on Portland's urban forest. The staff reductions in the proposed budget erode capacity in both Portland Parks, Urban Forestry, and in the PP&D Bureau's Tree Permitting Division. Last year's budget cutbacks have already been damaging, but if adopted, the new staff reductions will cripple the city's ability to implement the new urban forest plan, which council approved last year, along with the soon-to-be updated tree code. These cuts also threaten other tree canopy improvements that the public has voted for or otherwise backed, such as the Parks Levy and PSEF, which funds much of urban forestry-related work. Cutting tree canopy initiatives that the city created with strong public support betrays residents' trust in the city to honor commitments. If funding approved for the defined purpose of PSEF is reallocated at will by city leaders, how do we believe the next request will prove true to its stated purpose? We need to protect our green infrastructure, which has attracted newcomers to Portland and which contributes to the landscape that keeps taxpayers here. Tree canopy is critical city infrastructure that needs to be improved and maintained, just like all other public infrastructure that Portlanders need for health, safety, and well-being. Please make any of the necessary cuts to PP&D and parks with a scalpel, taking care not to send the city into yet another new crisis in the coming years. Granted, new initiatives that need funding and contribute to continued recovery in Portland are valid, but the current budget proposal is looking to fund them by gutting existing programs that have also been deemed valid. More effort is needed to identify appropriate funding sources for the new initiatives. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Savannah Joy, and I'm a nursing student at OHSU who works closely with the downtown houseless population through my time with Behavioral Health Resource Center and the Community Health Assess Treat team known as CHAT. To my city council members, thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to your neighbors. Through personal experiences or secondhand stories, I know many of us tonight are aware of the housing and resource crisis occurring in Portland, our city. I'm sure many people in this room have struggled with longer response times as well. The hoops we jump through to access healthcare make the process all the more difficult, and this difficulty is compounded by the need to meet the first level of the hierarchy of our needs. Folks who are struggling to meet these needs don't always have access to preventative care, stable housing, or nutritious hot meals. Increasingly, they're turning to emergency room, urgent care, and 911 for help only once things have become dire enough to ask for that emergency help. Subsequently, our emergency resources are becoming overwhelmed and inundated with the need they are seeing. They are struggling to address chronic needs with emergency short-term solutions. CHAT is the ladder and helping hand that helps connect folks to housing, detox programs, and primary health care. CHAT diverts emergency response teams who don't have all the resources needed to address the needs of clients and has generated over $16 million in estimated healthcare system savings through proper resource allocation. Most importantly, CHAT saves the lives of our neighbors. And here's my request. Please reinstate CHAT's funding in the next budget cycle without cuts and move that funding from temporary to permanent. CHAT has helped so many people and with stable funding has the potential to help so many more. It is one of the only programs that can establish clients with Suboxone prescriptions and opioid substance use treatment and give them the foundational support they need to build their path to recovery. City Council, you have difficult budget decisions ahead of you. The decision to fund CHAP permanently saves future funds and allows us to catch those of our community who may otherwise fall by the wayside while simultaneously investing in our community at large. Thank you for your time and commitment to Portland.
Councilors, City Administrator, my name is Mike Dunn Bernstein, and I'm a representative of the Portland Firefighter Association. I'm also a longtime and still current resident of Northeast Portland in District 2. The mayor's proposed budget reduces daily on-duty firefighter staffing from 171 to 161 by cutting 3 vehicles in Southeast Portland in high call volume, underserved areas, and a fire engine from Station 22 in St. John's. The mayor touted keeping all fire stations open. Careful wordplay as he gambles with Portlanders' lives and safety, reducing response reliability in a business like ours. Fires, industrial accidents, and medical emergencies, seconds count. Structure fires double in size every minute. Recovery from strokes, traumatic injuries, and cardiac arrest drop drastically as the time between incident and intervention grows longer. These proposed cuts do exactly that. The fire engine that carries the water and the hose required to extinguish fires will have to travel from stations further out and by limited response routes. The north end of our city has critical energy infrastructure, terminals that facilitate the movement of commerce and goods, and the vast recreational and green spaces. Station 22 is strategically cross-staffed with wildland engines and ATVs to augment the response to Forest Park in the event of wildfires within the city limits. Cutting their staffing in half will eliminate the ability to rapidly address one of the several areas we could see a large loss of green space within our city. Station 22 is also responsible for much of Highway 30, stretching out to Linton neighborhood towards Sauvie Island, an area that already struggles to reach acceptable response metrics in the event of fires. A similar cut was made to Station 8, serving the Arbor Lodge and Kenton neighborhoods of North Portland. That staffing cut was never restored, a need I know Councilor Canal has publicly addressed. By cutting Engine 22, we will rely on Engine 26 near the University of Portland to cover 3 different fire management areas. These cuts not only put the public at risk, but firefighters as well. Allowing a fire to grow larger and hotter inherently makes the risks greater as we fight to save life and property. So I'm asking the District 2 councilors, along with your fellow councilors, to amend this proposed budget and fully fund public safety. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Travis Blevins, and I'm a member of Portland Firefighters Association and resident of District 2. I'm here to speak about the proposed closure of Engine 22 at Station 22 in St. John's and the reduction of 3 rescue units that would be taken out of service overnight. Let me start with Engine 22. The engine serves one of the most geographically isolated areas in Portland. With limited access in and out of St. John's, Engine 22 is critical in getting help there quickly. If it is closed, the next closest units will have to travel farther. That means longer response times to fires, medical emergencies, and crashes. In our work, those extra minutes matter. Now add the loss of 3 rescue units overnight. Those rescues handle a large share of medical calls. Taking them out of service from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. means fewer resources when people need help and more strain on the crews that remain. These are not theoretical impacts. Emergency response times are already increasing and resources are stretched thin. Fire leadership has warned that cuts like these would create dangerous gaps in coverage. When you combine the loss of Engine 22 with the overnight loss of 3 rescues, you are increasing risk to public safety, especially in St. John's. When someone calls 911, they expect help to come quickly. This proposal puts that at risk. I'm asking you, as representatives of District 2, to protect Engine 22 and the community that depends on it, and to restore the rescue units to 24-hour coverage. Thank you.
And now we have Marcus Donaldson, Emily Finch, Tiana Tozer, Jacob Hoops, Susan Lewis, and Molly Armentrout. You can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Emily Finch. I'm a Portland resident, a parent, and somebody who has already experienced what these kinds of cuts look like in real life. 7 years ago, we lost our home to a fire in Ladd's Addition. When we called 911, there was just a small amount of smoke drifting through our basement. I went outside and stood on the lawn while we were on hold. By the time we were connected to an operator, thick black smoke was pouring out of our roof. It was excruciating watching our house burn with not enough 911 operators available to take my call due to budget cuts to emergency communications. After the first unit arrived, there was still a delay before water was actually put on the fire. Due to budget cuts, the station that covered our neighborhood did not have a full engine, only a smaller unit without water. So the first responders couldn't immediately fight the fire. We lost our home that day. That station that covers Ladd's Addition also covers Brooklyn and Central East Side, including OMSI. I'm sharing this because these decisions are not abstract. When you remove an engine or understaff emergency communications, you increase the time it takes for help to arrive when people are at their most vulnerable. And these delays compound a slower 911 response combined with the first unit that can't act and then waiting for additional support. This doesn't create a small difference. It creates a completely different outcome. I understand that budgets require trade-offs, but there has to be a baseline level of safety that we do not go below. And it's a really big deal for me to attend this meeting because I have trouble leaving my house because I've just lost my sense of safety here in Portland. And yes, we are considering leaving. Removing the only fire engine serving an entire neighborhood like St. John's is not a minor adjustment. It is a decision that will increase response times and reduce the ability to act in the first critical minutes of an emergency. I've lived through what happens when the system doesn't respond in time. Please don't make decisions that make that more likely for others. Thank you.
Marcus Donaldson, St. John's, third generation. I'm here to speak about the proposed closure of Engine 22 and what that would mean for North Portland, especially for the St. John's and Linton communities. The St. John's community is not a typical fire response area. It's large, complex, and geographically isolated. We're operating on a peninsula cut off from the west by a single bridge with large industrial sites, steep terrain, and a significant wildland-urban interface. That means access is limited, response routes are fragile, and backup is not close by. When one unit is tied up, there is no safety net. We've already felt the impact of losing Engine 8 in the Kenton neighborhood in 2013. Today, if Engine 22 is removed, just a single fire engine in the Portsmouth neighborhood, that is one carrying sufficient water and hose, would be left to cover the entire north end. One unit cannot be in two places at once. Any call, no matter how routine, would leave large areas unprotected and delay response times to more critical emergencies. Replacing Engine 22 and Truck 22 with a single, larger hybrid fire truck may sound efficient on paper, but it would reduce our real-world capability. Many streets in Linton and other tight access areas simply cannot accommodate that type of vehicle. The result is slower response times or no access at all when minutes matter most. Station 22 also plays a critical role in wildland response. Our crews are specifically trained and equipped to respond in Forest Park and the surrounding areas. Cutting staff in half doesn't just reduce capacity, it undermines our ability to train, patrol, and respond effectively in high-risk environments. We also have mutual aid responsibilities with neighboring counties and strong operational ties to Sovies Island. These partnerships depend on having adequate and reliable resources. With only one unit, we cannot meet those obligations without compromising service and safety at home. And finally, as Portland Fire invests in an improved high-rise response downtown and throughout the city, it's worth remembering that every community deserves appropriate protection. Residents in North Portland, including those in the high-density, low-income housing like the Shrunk Tower, should not receive a lower standard of service because of where they live. This decision is not about reallocating equipment. It's about response times, access, firefighter safety, and the level of protection that we provide to the public. Removing Engine 22 would stretch an already thin system past its limits. I urge you to consider the real-world consequences. Keep this vital resource in service. Thank you.
Tiana Tozer, 27 years in District 2. This feels like deja vu. Wasn't I just talking to you about this last year? Except for Mr. Lee, you're new. Welcome. The key to getting out of this doom loop is economic development. The key to economic development is safety and livability. Mr. Lee, you said we had a high level of core services. We don't have a high level of core services. Last November, I was in a Safeway parking lot and I was attacked. It took attacked by 2 women. It took 25 minutes for the police to respond. I'm legally disabled. I don't know if you know how long 25 minutes is when you can't run, but it is super long. I don't feel safe. I've lived in 3 war zones as a humanitarian aid worker. I have never, ever carried a weapon, and I now carry pepper spray in Portland, Oregon, my hometown. I do not feel safe. Matter of fact, I'm thinking about going back to a war zone. If we cut core services, the neighborhoods that bear the brunt of reduced core services are our most diverse and low-income neighborhoods. You know, it's easy to be someone who lives in a white neighborhood where you get good response times and everybody cares about you. But the low-income diverse neighborhoods that we go on and on and on about, they're always left in the dust. So what about them? And I just want to say I have 3 priorities: fire, no cuts; police, no cuts; and PMO, no cuts. I want to remind you that the ADA settlement that I was a part of goes until June 30th, 2028. You need to be able to meet the needs of your most vulnerable and largest minority population, people with disabilities. And we are the largest minority in Portland. If we start from the idea that Portland should be a safe place for children, maybe we can get there. It's time to get back to basics and make the hard decisions. You asked how I feel, Councillor Ryan. I feel beleaguered. I'm a single disabled woman. I make less than all the councillors. I feel like I just got hit with every single tax. I feel like I don't get any services. And I feel like there are no rewards in Portland for being a responsible, law-abiding citizen and no consequences for breaking the rules. I am very beleaguered, and I encourage you not to cut anything that puts our public safety at risk. Let's put our money where our mouth is.
Jacob Hoops, Susan Lewis, and Molly Armentrout.
Son. Hi. Hi, friends. My name is Jacob Hoops. Thank you so much for being here. I live in Arbor Lodge. Yeah, thank you for being here and standing up for all of us. Please continue to listen to the people in this room and throughout this district. There's several parts to my testimony. I want to start off by thanking you for passing the transportation utility fee and street damage restoration fee. We are stealing from the future by not paying for the actual cost of the work being done. As a young person who hopes to live in Portland for the rest of my life, my generation will spend our lives undoing the mistakes of those in power now. I have recently been accepted to PSU's Master of Urban and Regional Planning program, and I hope to bring the best lessons from around the world to this beautiful city. I came to this city 7 years ago, in large part due to the extensive transit network and ability to live a full life without selling my future to car dependency. I'm reliant on public transit, just like a large fraction of Portland residents. I'm committed to the city in response to your question, Councillor Ryan. In relation to the larger funding reality, the excitement from many of our public officials, including some in this room, the public funding of Moda Center renovations, which helps primarily a billionaire, is deeply embarrassing. This is in District 2. It's frustrating to have a $160 million budget deficit and a $300 million budget deficit for TriMet when compared with a $600 million unbound donation to a billionaire. This is an embarrassing dereliction of duty. We must realize the necessity of avoiding unnecessary expenses. Streets are necessarily and inevitably a ballooning cost with no end in sight. They have been built in a boom and have been an increasing weight around our shoulders ever since. We need a managed reduction of the square footage and therefore management cost of our streets throughout the city. Councillor Canal, you spoke about prioritizing doing over planning, especially in regards to climate resilience. This is the coolest summer of the rest of our lives. We need to do what we can to provide for the future generations who live in the city. That includes fully funding the fire engines in St. John's and around the city. Engine 22 is critical. Consider more investment in fire-resistant design and infrastructure, including possibly expanding funding for fire engines and fire-resilient design.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
I need to get closer. I'm here out of concern for Engine 22. Where we live in St. John's, we look across a community garden, Pier Community Garden, at the entrance of an affordable housing, low-income complex called Cathedral Gardens. We consider the people who live in that complex are part of our community. That complex is also adjacent to Pier Park, which is an 84-acre forested gem in Portland. We observe Engine 22 going into that complex 2 or 3 times a week regularly. So we see that there's a need, and we always appreciate that that need is being met by Engine 22. On the most part, the engine is there, sometimes the aid car. So the people in that complex, many of them garden in the community garden side by side with the rest of us that are there from other parts of the community. So I'm concerned that the poorer residents are being deprived of services that we see that are being met and we appreciate. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Molly Armentrout, and I'm a resident of District 2. I want to advocate for maintaining parks and recreation funding for frontline workers who provide direct services to the public. One of the important aspects of park funding is Sun School funding. Sun School funding is a crucial service to students and working families. Sun staff work in schools and provide valuable services such as resource navigation. They operate food pantries and clothing pantries within schools, provide pro-social programs, academic support, sports activities, and culturally specific programming for Portland's immigrant and refugee communities. The staff are valuable mentors to students and provide that needed village for students and youth who need to thrive. In addition, it functions as a valuable form of subsidized childcare and enrichment to youth whose parents cannot pay for private services. In the midst of our affordability crisis, this is really hitting working class BIPOC communities very hard. It is important that we maintain services that impact their lives. I also want to advocate to maintain funding for civic engagement because some communities have more barriers to engagement than others. Changing the city charter to increase representation was a really great start for Portland, but we do need to continue the work and engage communities. Thank you.
And now we'll have Heather Tennant, Steve Demarest, Anna Shook, Helen Hammingson, Maggie Weller, and Norma Minithorn. Oh, there's one spot down here if you'd like. Go ahead.
Me?
Sure.
My name is Heather Tennant, and I'm a 6th generation St. John's as well as Portsmouth. And I'm here to speak about Engine 22 and St. John's, our firefighters. We love them. We need them. I am in-home health care, hospice, end-of-life care. My grandparents were also involved with the Shirley Ann Fund. When we call 911, we're in trouble. The life or death situation. And when we call 911, we have the opportunity for police officers, ambulance, and firefighters. And in my experience, and all the years that I have been serving at medical community, is that our firefighters are the first to show up and they're the last ones to leave. These people save lives, They work hard, and they're so much a part of our community. They love our local 22. We can't live without them. And when we talk about spending money towards, a new MODA center for our trailblazers, I love our trailblazers, but I love our firefighters more. I love St. John's more. Our community has been cut off. We lost our police precinct. We fought against Pembina coming in, the oil. These are our first responders. These are the people that save our lives, our parents' lives, our children's lives, community. If you take 22 away from an already poverty area, we seem to get dumped on. St. John seems to get dumped on all the time. But you take away our first responders, and what do we have? I speak for the elders who couldn't make it here today. I speak for the people who cannot be here today. I speak for my grandmother and my grandfather who are deceased now, but were such a huge part of the community, Joan and Austin Brown. And I want you all to know how important it is for us to keep our fire departments.
Thank you.
Councilors, Administrator, my name is Stephen Demarest. I'm a 38-year resident of District 2. My wife and I raised our children here. Councilors, Administrator, transportation systems and planning are a public safety matter, and there should be no higher priority than public safety. That includes Vision Zero. Now, based on traffic fatalities so far this year, it's a public safety matter that's disproportionately impacted District 2. Changes in investment in infrastructure can save lives. Relatively inexpensive investments and changes in infrastructure can save particularly the lives of vulnerable road users. And every accident prevented saves a first responder call. It saves an investigation by law enforcement. And it helps save the reputation of Portland as a place where families want to live and people want to do business. Thank you.
Switcheroo here.
All right, I'll try again. Is that better? All right.
Maybe it's a
Third
spot.
time. Maybe it's, okay. My name is Ellen Hamilton. I'm a resident of District 2. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you to the many people who have spoken much more eloquently than I could.
Test.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, I think people heard my introduction. I am deeply concerned that our city government, council, and mayor alike are even considering giving away $300 million for the upgrade of the MODA Center. I mean, I've heard nothing that demonstrates that we are making strong negotiations to get something back financially, to make sure that the partners are putting into that. But beyond that, we are facing a budget deficit. That money could fund the kind of basic services that we need to make this the city that we do want to live in. I am concerned that we're being told repeatedly we can't pay for even basic transportation services given the sorry state of our roads and the hazard that causes. Our once outstanding park system is facing imminent cuts and layoffs. Portland hasn't even begun to meet the need for climate mitigation or for adequate housing. We have not dealt with street racing and traffic hazards that endanger people. And we're hearing over and over again about cuts to fire protection. I've been in a house fire. I know what that is about. So how can you continue discussing this giveaway in this year? Let's put it off. Bring it to the voters. If the Portlanders really want to see twice our budget deficit going to an upgrade that may not bring us anything and may just make tickets more expensive for those people who are big Blazers fans, let the voters decide that. And if we proceed with letting that even be a possibility, we're showing a lack of empathy for those Portlanders who are going to feel the brunt of your budget cuts the most. Many people have spoken really eloquently about that. And I hope that this process also is made much more visible and transparent than it has been to this date. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Hi, my name is Anna Shook. I am a resident of District 2 in Arbor Lodge. And I also consider Kenton my neighborhood because I live right next to it and it's my little business district. So I'm a resident of Portland since 2006, but I also went to high school here and I graduated from Grant in 1986. So I consider myself a true Portlander. I want to stay here. I want to retire here. I currently work for the city of Portland and I have for almost 20 years. I would like to talk a little bit about some of the things I've heard from the other residents and what it means to me that I lost my husband in 2024. He was a social worker. He helped homeless people. That was his specialty. He was very ill for quite a long time and I depended on 911 when he had low blood sugar or when he had other problems stemming from muscular dystrophy. So it is kind of upsetting for me now to hear that that some of the fire engines in our broader neighborhood are being considered to be cut because like everyone else, I think that while I love us having a world-class basketball team in a world-class stadium, I don't think that's a priority compared to people's life and health. And I also think that there have been some blanket cuts on staff that are not part of this current budget discussion, but are part of the realignment thing that the mayor has been doing for a while. And they have had a disproportionate impact on younger staff, on less senior staff, on more diverse staff. And they have also had a big there have been whole areas cut, such as training and safety coordinators, and I really think that's a very bad risk to the city. So I would like counselors to look at the impacts of the core realignment project and maybe make some trade-offs there with what they're doing there as opposed to what the budget cuts are supposed to do. I urge Portlanders to look carefully at this budget and make your voices heard at any opportunity you have. Thank you.
Norma said I should go first. My name is Maggie Weller. I am a District 2 resident. I've been in Overlook for about 25 years. I want to echo what I've heard others say about the fact that I think what we're all feeling right now is that a lot of our other safety net services have been falling through. The federal government is disinvesting in all states, but especially in ones they're mad at. The county and the state are in budget shortfalls as well. We do not have $300 million extra dollars to put again toward a billionaire. If we have to pay an extra fee to pay for the roads, which I'm fully in support of, I think people who want to go to a Trailblazers game can pay another $1 for their beer. I don't know how you pay for that, but I don't want to. I also want to thank Councillor Canal for pushing for the active contracts report to be included in the May report. And I appreciate the city administrator for getting this information in the report after some time. I was looking at other appendices though in that report and the level of detail. There's not enough information here related to what the activities are related to the dollar amount for, I think, for me especially, but I think for anybody at this table to make good decisions about whether or not those additional dollars should be invested in those places. So I think if we're in a time of having to be really careful with our dollars and people are here talking about, being here after trauma and making it here still to talk to you about the importance of those basic services that I think the counselors who have pushed for, and I appreciated City Administrator Lee, you really I see you showing up to be transparent and get that information to the council. And I really appreciate that. I know you're new in this role and you're doing a fantastic job and I appreciate it a lot. I think that we can only make good strategic decisions with the information. And so the more information the counselors have, the more information we have, the better it is, the better we can be at using our dollars strategically. And I would say that I agree with the comments about public safety. Public safety is also about supporting parks and chat and PSR and bike lanes.
Thank you.
And we keep us safe. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Norma Minthorn. Last name spelled Minthorn. I live in the Cully neighborhood, so I'm in District 2. It's my third time living here. I've raised 4 sons, mostly in the Cully neighborhood. I grew up in Southeast Portland in 1969, graduated at Cleveland High School in 79. Now, I'd like to talk about the police and fire reduction. I was living in Coley in one of the new affordable housing on 42nd and Holman when the pallet fire was there. And we thought our Native organization was burning down. And we were very fearful because everything was dry. Our building was dry, the neighborhood, everything was dry. And some of us went down there to the building thinking that, that's our headquarters for many Native organizations and communities and people and the students that go to school there. But my concern is also with the reduction with police is that we're not on the reverse 911 program in our Native buildings. And a few years ago, there was a carjacking that happened here on 33rd and Holman, and they ended up finding the suspects right across the street from our building. So, and a lot of the police don't like to come to our buildings anymore because it's a management issue, is what they tell us. So that's my concern about the police and fire. I'm also concerned about affordable housing. If there's any reductions in affordable housing, because most of the companies that I've seen have been slumlords. They're usually national or across the country. They don't care about the tenants. They get their rent and they don't maintain the building. In our building alone, we have no janitorial. We have no full-time maintenance staff. We have a manager that manages 7 other buildings. So, we're basically managing ourselves with what little that we have.
Thank
So
you.
I think it's important to oversee some of these nonprofit organizations as far as housing and how we live.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Patrick O'Connor, Talia Giardini, Melinda Miriam, Rebecca Wise Barton, Jenny Hoyt, and Steve Fenner. Sorry, Stephen Fenner.
You've seen me at your house, the city hall. We're in our house now, so I'm gonna be a little more unhinged. My name is Rebecca Wise Barton. When Mayor Wilson put out his budget, he said in a video, "Oh, we're out by 160 million. We're in a deficit." He talked about having a shared vision, shared priorities, shared necessity, and shared sacrifices in that video. I'm wondering what shared sacrifices he has in this budget. In a video today, he talked with Dave Miller from Think Out Loud. And Dave says there's a $172 million deficit. Wilson didn't change it. So 160 to 172, the number is 172. So I just got a couple things. I don't see how this budget is doing what. I'll just get to the point. I think you guys should reject this budget. This is a new form of government. This is what the people are saying they need. The mayor is not representative of the people right now. And I think you guys are representing the people. If you guys reject this budget, I think that would be appropriate.
Hi, I'm Talia Giardini. I'm an RN and a lifelong Portland resident. The basic functions of a city is police, fire, sewer, roads, and parks. Those are the responsibilities of the city, and those are the responsibilities that must be met. Everything else is just fluff. As someone has said, we need to understand that we don't have Disneyland money this year. Our family's on a strict budget, and we have to prioritize. I urge you to restore and prioritize public safety funding. Public safety is the most basic function of a city, and by public safety, I mean police and fire. I don't mean parks and trees. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most basic needs for human survival is water, shelter, and safety. Without those basic needs met, we can't focus on things like community, achievement, creativity, and meaning. We can't have a functioning city without public safety. We can't have functioning parks without public safety. We can't have functioning businesses and jobs without public safety. Kids can't get to school without public safety. We can't use public transit without public safety. Hospitals can't function without public safety, and nothing else matters if we're not safe. Also, $0 should go to Vision Zero since it goes against the National Research Institute of Traffic Safety recommendations, which recommends consistent signage and roads. Anything climate related can go to PSEF. We have $200 and extra million coming in every year when 60 million was supposed to be what came in. There's plenty enough to go around. Cut the fluff, get back to basics, anything else, and we're going to circle the drain as a city. As I said before, the basic functions of a city is police, fire, sewer, roads, and parks. Those are the responsibility of the city. We pay enough to have those needs met before anything else. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having this meeting. I really do. I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone in the room very much appreciates you hearing us out and our points of view on this. And I just want to say, as I was sitting there, just kind of waiting for my turn to speak, I looked up on the screen and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember voting for every one of these people. And so I live in District 2. Sorry, my name is Steve Fenner. Occupation, I run a treatment center for drug and alcohol addiction and mental health treatment in Portland. So, and when I get home from a long, hard day of work, I expect my home to be there. So, and all those wonderful things that are needs and not luxuries that you mentioned a couple minutes ago, I would like to keep having those as well. As part of the St. John's community, I just see so many of us trying to add value to our community in different ways. Just driving or walking down the street, I see people like actively like working on their gardens and a community garden and, out intentionally, walking their dogs and talking to people and like just really trying to build this sense of community and make it a place of just like this value that's more than just like monetary, right? And shutting down Engine 22 is going to subtract value from our community. It is, especially with losing that police department. I only moved in a few years ago, so I didn't even know I didn't even know we had a police department. And I was like, well, that's really unfortunate. And then now I find out that had been taken away. And now this is at risk of being taken away. And this is such a huge mistake. A main thing, and it's probably already been said, but I think it's important that more than one person says it. I actually heard somebody say it in the last group of speakers, is that, not far from where I live, maybe a few blocks away is Jop Recycling on Lombard. And it probably catches fire that big. It's for those of you who are not aware, it is a pallet recycling plant. And that big, oh, I'm what? Oh, I'm out of time. Okay. It catches fire twice a year at least. And having a fire department close by is so necessary. The air just gets thick with smoke at least twice a year. It's dangerous. Yep.
The mayor had proposed using PSEF funds for the MODA Center at one point. And now with his new proposal, he's saying we could reduce homelessness with PSEF funds. He doesn't know where the funds are coming from. He's looking for it anywhere. So that's why I suggest you guys reject this budget. All right, thank you.
And thank you for being here. I'm a brand new Portland resident and I chose to move here. And I even moved here after the last election, so I didn't get a chance to vote for any of you, but I consider you my neighbors and part of the community that I welcomed as my new life. And I want to tell you that I find the mayor's budget proposal to be not at all what the people of Portland want. And we've heard it tonight. I've seen it online comments everywhere. And people are saying, and I'll just repeat it very quickly, our parks, our recreation department, our public safety, our frontline workers, our union frontline workers are the people whose jobs we need to keep. And in a budget document that I saw, the non-union staff cuts are minimal and they're mostly empty positions. So cutting real people who depend on these jobs, who we depend on to be there in our city, is not fair to these people. It's not fair to those of us as residents. And to echo what so many other people have said, the mayors and the governor's plan to put hundreds of millions of dollars to the MODA Center is ridiculous when we're looking at our quality of life here in the city. And the things that everyone has told you we need to put our money to, we know that you stand for us, the people, and to push back against that, because I found the governor's take very insulting to say, don't play politics with this. It's our money. It's our tax money. We're going to play with our tax money the way we want to. Oh, sorry, I'm Melinda Merriam.
Hi, my name is Jenny Hoyt, and I live in Pier Park, and I'm here today on behalf of my 10-year-old daughter, Winnie. Sorry. Winnie is a fifth-generation North Portlander. I am here tonight to warn you of the real consequences of closing Engine 22, the St. John's Fire Station. Just days after Winnie's first birthday and a year spent receiving very intense medical and disability diagnoses for her, one after the other, we were faced with the scariest of them all when she got a fever, epilepsy. Winnie had her first grand mal seizure when I was home by myself, and I can't describe to you the terror it is to see your baby seizing uncontrollably and turning blue from lack of oxygen. Luckily for us, The heroes at our local station, just 0.8 miles away, were able to come to our rescue and administer medication to stop the seizure. As you may or may not know, ambulances are usually the second to arrive to a scene, and it's often 10, 15, 20 minutes after that the local firemen and women have triaged and treated with their own equipment. The time differential in those situations is dire. I wish I could say it was an isolated one-time incident, but alas, Winnie has required EMS roughly 15 times in her 1 decade of life. From pneumonia, critically low oxygen saturations, Todd's paralysis, many, many more incredibly scary seizures. We've needed professional assistance in order to save her life. We are realistic enough to know that Winnie's survival is largely due to the care that me and my husband provide, but the part that is out of our control must have a safety net without delay. I can understand budget problems, but I cannot understand why life-saving care would be on the chopping block. Look elsewhere for your savings. My child's life and other vulnerable citizens depend on it. Thank you.
Patrick O'Connor, Joan Tennant, McKay Larrabee, Terry Parker, and Kimberly Arufu.
Hello, I'm Joan Tennant. I'm 14 years old and I'm the 6th generation of District 2. I've spoke in front of the conference and the press before fighting Pembina at the age of 3. I believe that our local 22 fire department shouldn't even be on the consideration list for budget cuts. There are first responders saving many lives each day, and you're telling me you want to take that away? And yes, I do understand there's the 26 fire department, but as a teenager, I can see that that is a concern to our community, our elders, our future children, and even my generation's kids. I believe that we need to take more action, if anything, helping our fire department, even as raising their wages instead of taking that department away. I believe our fire department is our future and we need to keep them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is McKay Larrabee, and I'm a member of CPPW. I also serve as an analyst with the Community Health Assess and Treat program. My comments here today are my own and not made as a representative of the city. Although I live in District 3, I get to see the impact the chat team makes in all districts, including this one. I've started my 4th week at Chat today, and even in that short time, I've already seen firsthand the incredible impact that the Chat team has in our community. My partner has been with me for 20 years in a couple of different new jobs. He said the first week, this job is different. And I think it's because I'm so hopeful to work for a group that makes a real difference on the ground in this community. Every day, the Chat crew steps into complex situations with professionalism, compassion, and a deep commitment to helping people who are often experiencing some of the most difficult moments in their lives. What stood out to me most is not just the volume of work they do, but the quality, meeting people where they are, building trust, and connecting them to the resources they need. I also want to highlight the aftercare team whose work is just as critical. They are the ones who continue that support after the initial response. They follow up, maintain connections, and help ensure that people don't fall through the cracks and end up right back into crisis. That kind of continuity is what truly keeps people from falling off the edge and creates more stable long-term outcomes. Chat also plays an important role in strengthening our overall emergency response system by responding to overdose and behavioral health calls. The chat team helps relieve mainline fire units from needing to respond to every one of those incidents. This means those units are more available to respond quickly to other medical emergencies and fires, improving response times and outcomes across the system. From my early experience, it's clear that this program is not just valuable, it's essential. I'm here today to express my strong support for Chat and the work they do, and I hope to see continued investment in this program so that they can keep maintaining a more meaningful difference in our community. Thank you for your time.
Terry Parker, Kimberly Rufu, and Patrick O'Connor, if you're in the room.
My name is Terry Parker. I live in District 3, about midway between the Gateway Town Center, District 1, where Fred Meyer has closed their doors due to crime and extensive shoplifting, and Hollywood, District 2, where there are numerous empty storefronts, including on Sandy Boulevard. What I'm asking you to do is not to make budget cuts that would reduce response times for emergency responders, specifically for police and fire. The consequences of reducing these response times would be more businesses closing their doors and or moving to the suburbs, coupled with more empty storefronts. That would also mean less business tax revenue for the city. The second item I wanted to bring up related to budget is the unspoken reality that PBOT's transportation system plan is financially unsustainable. It has been designed as a subsidy-inspired policy-making tool that attempts to dictate travel mode choice through subsidies rather than a means to provide for adequate and equitable infrastructure funding. Due to the heavy weight of transit buses, riders traveling in a 40-foot bus account for 30 to 60 times more pavement wear per passenger than people driving cars. The bottom line is that alternative mode users do not pay their fair share for the infrastructure being utilized. Instead of increasing housing costs with transportation utility fees that have no reference as to how many people live in a Pacific dwelling, and therefore no reference to the actual miles traveled, or adding to a cost to driving, thereby increasing transportation costs and inflating prices of goods and services, including products at the grocery store. The time is long overdue to apply a road maintenance surcharge to transit fares and require adult bicyclists to fund bicycle infrastructure, both of which are not likely to inflate retail prices. In closing, I also highly suggest that you oppose the BAT lanes on 82nd Avenue, which, if implemented, will increase traffic congestion, divert up to 6,000 cars a day onto other routes and into neighborhoods. This will add to fuel consumption, emissions, and inflation. Additionally, the BAT lanes are apt to negatively impact many of the small and minority businesses on 82nd Avenue, where, according to surveys, 90% of their customers ride by car. Creating BAT lanes just to save an additional 3 to 4 minutes of transit travel time on a 7-mile stretch of roadway does not make economic sense. Finally, citywide budget cuts should come from reducing top-heavy administration, such as eliminating the deputy city administrator positions. Thank you.
Just before the timer starts, I have asthma and talking really fast is hard for me to breathe, so I might just have to pause or take a puff of my inhaler. Good evening, counselors. My name is Kimberly Rufu. I'm a CPPW member where I advocate for my fellow union workers on the bargaining team. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm open about being disabled. I serve the city through my work at Portland Parks and Rec. I'm here in my own personal capacity on my own time as someone who engages with parks, businesses, and community in D2. I'm the East Developed Parks Coordinator, otherwise known as Budget Cut Package 26,961, Reduced Staff Support of Community Groups. I started in 2022, tasked with developing a new position created through the 2020 Parks Levy. I'm one of 2 geographically designated positions, East and West, and I'm the only FTE on my team to be facing a layoff. I manage a growing portfolio of 20 community partners, like the Friends of Pier Park, Friends of Peninsula Park Rose Garden, and the Friends of Columbia Park, just to name a few. Recently, we completed a major project milestone with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School at King School Park. This was a 6-month process that I coordinated every step of the way, including managing translations of all event materials to increase language access and equity. This past Earth Day, we hosted a collaborative planting event with the school that included over 80 students and teachers to completely revitalize the park garden beds around the sports courts. Together, we planted 500 new native and pollinator-friendly plants. I also coordinate an Eastside land care and gardening maintenance-focused volunteer program with 10 monthly volunteer events across D1, 2, and 3, including a new community volunteer opportunity at North Portland Gem Pier Park. I read a quote earlier this week by a city press officer in the Oregonian saying, "We never want Portlanders to feel like they're navigating the city alone." My role has been a dedicated East Side Bureau liaison, serving as a key point of contact for partners, community groups, volunteers, and schools to help them navigate the confusing world of local government so they can find meaningful volunteer and partnership opportunities to support our beloved public parks. This increases volunteerism and ensures more equitable access to city services, something North and Northeast Portland has historically lacked. Thank you for your time, and I urge you to invest in your community by investing in the workers who serve them.
Patrick O'Connor. Last call for Patrick O'Connor. Okay, so that concludes the testimony portion. And now we will hand it over to Councillor Canal, and then Councillor Ryan, and then Councillor Purtle-Guinea to share some closing remarks and reflections.
When we decided what order we were going to go in, I hadn't really thought about how processing so many different things at once would in 5 seconds would be challenging. But I really appreciate everything we've heard today. I took detailed notes, as I know my colleagues did as well. Last year when this happened, instead of trying to respond to it, I'm just going to share 2 things. Last year when we did these, there were some programs and parks that were on the chopping block. One of them was the citywide sports program and the Golden Ball tournament. And because of how many people brought it up at these 4 listening sessions, I think we were able to save that program. Because of what came up here, we were able to save the community centers. We were able to save specifically, I mean, 2 of the ones that were potentially going to get cut were in this district as well. So these were things that I'm going to take the time and read back over all these and process them. I think City Administrator Lee heard very clearly what people think about Station 22 losing an engine in the mayor's proposed. I hope that you will share that with the mayor, who should have been here for this, to hear about that. I also just wanted to share that when I did a ride along last year, I responded. I live in the Station 8 area, which lost its double company a few years back. I was doing a ride along there, and Station 26, their engine was out on another call, and we responded to support a crew in a fire at St. John's. This was like 6 months ago, a little less than that. And when I was out there, what struck me was how long it took to get through the rabbit warren when the grid changes, when you're maneuvering a vehicle of that size. And got there right when 2 or 3 other people, I think the Station 6 from Linton had come up as well. And just watching as you get out, and when you do a ride along, and everybody who has a chance to do it. When you get out and watch people climb up each person's got their own thing. Each team's got their own piece. Somebody's trying to help with the making sure people are out of the building. Somebody's cutting open with a chainsaw the roof to vent the smoke. Someone's comforting the residents. And each part of it is vital on its own. And together, they're even more vital. And I would hate to see any component part of that go away or any of that get delayed. And I think that that's the thing that I'm taking away the most from today. But I really appreciate everything else that's come up as well, whether it's Vision Zero or the MODA Center or transportation and transit in general, because these are all things that we're going to be talking about. We spent a lot of time focused on the general fund in our budget, but there's a lot in the other side of it. There's more money over there too. There's only $1 billion in the general fund, and there's a $6+ billion in the overall budget. And so as a result of what I've heard today, I'm going to make sure that we're taking that time on that side as well. Please feel free to reach out to my office. I know we may be able to hang around for a bit as well, but if anyone wants to reach out, it's counselor.canal@portlandoregon.gov, and I can probably put out a reflection on social media, which is Counselor Canal, once I've had a chance to process all this in detail. Thanks.
Does this work? Can I stand up? All right, thanks. We said a lot during the budget season. Yeah, it's really hard on, can you hear me? All right, great. Thank you all for coming. That was great testimony. I'm really grateful that you focused on the District 2 residents. I think last year we learned from that it was important to do that when we have these sessions. So those of you that waited and then testified from another district, I appreciate your patience. We'll be doing that at each session, correct? Yeah. Station 22 fire, you were the real winners tonight. Like, can we all just agree with that? There was so much testimony on basic safety. And of course, the mother, Emily, I believe was her name, and it got to the heart of the matter. And so I really appreciate that testimony. I want to say a couple things about that. As somebody that grew up in these parts, you really monitor snowpack. And this winter has just been dreadful, as you know. It's the worst snowpack on record. So when people that have moved here from warmer climates are like, oh, it's so dry and wonderful this winter, I'm like, that's really bad. And you got to be a Oregonian to know to say that back to somebody, because we're on the eve of probably the driest summer ever in terms of fire danger. And so when you think of Station 22, when I think about it, it's the access to nature. It's the gateway, as they even say on some signs, to nature. And it goes over to Forest Park, but it goes out to Linton. It goes all the way up to Scappoose. So I know I want to talk to the mayor about what type of conversations that we had with Salvie Island, with Scappoose, with those jurisdictions that we have an agreement to work with. So it goes even beyond St. John's in terms of a summer where I think a lot of us are nervous about the impacts of the low snowpack. So clearly I'm obsessed over that. The ride-alongs are the best way for me as a counselor to get insight into public safety. And I'm almost done with my annual spring version of that. Chat was amazing. Cortland Street Response, Fire. I did a sit-along. That's with 911 BOIC. And I'll tell you, you don't want to leave at 4 o'clock, because between 3 and 8 is when the calls really increase, especially in the spring on the first sunny Friday. It was just like going crazy in the 911 area. And the thought of those skilled professionals being cut when I was on this council in 2020, 2021, 2022, and we had to claw back to get some of these services to just an acceptable level with some, but they're still not acceptable to most. I also experienced the cuts to police prior to 2020, and then had to do a really tough vote to say, please, no more police cuts. And when I did that vote, my home was attacked about 20 times from activists that wish it would have been cut. And so I'll be darned if I'm going to like roll over easily and cut police and fire in 2026. It's part of the Portland comeback. And people, we need a comeback because we need revenue back in this city. So I will fight hard to try to restore those cuts. That said, we have to make some tough decisions. What are those programs that aren't in our mission that we've added in the last 10 years? The city worked pretty well in 2014 and 2015. The city worked much better in 2016, 2017. So I keep asking questions. Why did we add so many FTEs in certain areas that aren't a part of our basic services? And city administrator, we've had this conversation. I want you to look into that and make bold choices. It's time for local government to make bold choices. I'm a big advocate for merging the city and the county, for example. And please go to county meetings if you care about public safety. Public safety is a shared responsibility with the county. The county does corrections, it does our recovery centers, and basically our 911, our first responders after 911 calls, they're tied. They don't know where to take people. So often they get blamed for people being released. Well, they're released because the county's cut jails, they've cut the prosecutions, they've cut the amount of public defenders, and so we release people before they should be released in our center. That's the county. So please show up at the county if you care about public safety as well as the city. I just hope that you all just continue to show up and be fabulous like you are. It's great to be out in the district. I get most of my information from walking around and talking to people in the district. And as someone that's really advocated for our storefront program, I can tell you those hardworking, independent, creative artists that don't want to work for big government, don't want to work for a big organization, but want to have their own storefront, they're begging us to not cut police and fire and 911 because they're so tired and exhausted from what they have to go through almost every week as we struggle with our humanitarian crisis on the streets. Thanks.
Thank you all for being here. Hearing from everybody from a new neighbor who's just moved here within the last year to sixth generation Northeast Portlanders, I think is a true statement to how invested people are in our community. And it's incredible to see that investment. I want to acknowledge that we have a bit of here we go again tonight. Last year, we sat around and we talked about the disparate impact to the St. John's neighborhood of the cuts that we were facing, specifically around our community centers, but other services as well. And tonight we are sitting here talking about potential disparate impacts to the St. John's neighborhood because of the proposed cut to Station 22. And I think it's really important for those of you who came to this northeast side of District 2 from the North Portland side to acknowledge that. Because at the start, when I talked about needing to make sure that we were looking at who the winners and losers are, where the disparate impacts are, that's one of them. And it's one that we absolutely have to address. And just like last year, the three of us came together as your District 2 counselors, and we pushed back hard against community center cuts. I will note that on these district issues, we work in close coordination. I think we're going to be having some conversations together about the fire cuts. So I think that I don't want to leave today without acknowledging what St. John's must be feeling looking at this budget, and without saying we will be working together, just like we did last year. You know, I heard some contradicting things tonight. And I think that's also important to say. There are a lot of different visions of what core services are, what we need to be a healthy, safe, strong community. And that's okay. And collectively, when we take all of those visions, I have to tell you the vision for Portland that you all as a room painted tonight is the city I want to live in, even with those contradictions. I hear a lot of hope and vision and also a lot of fear for your communities, for our collective future, for the experience right now for our families. And that's exactly what we need to hear, because we will go back to City Hall tomorrow actually to talk about public safety, and later this week to talk about a number of other service areas. And we'll get to ask questions of our bureau directors and our deputy city administrators and Mr. Lee of you, where we will get to bring that vision, those hopes, that fear to the forefront and really talk about what this budget should look like. Because at this point, folks, this budget is in council's hands. The mayor made a proposal, but the final budget is the one that council puts together. And we will have the opportunity to bring amendments. We will have the opportunity to make improvements, to make changes, and to address many of the things that you all brought up tonight. Councilor Ryan started us off by saying that the high-level hard decisions were made by the mayor. How do you close $160 or $70 or $72 million budget hole, depending on which iteration you're looking at here? But that doesn't mean that the changes that were proposed are the final ones. So thank you. Thank you for talking about safety and the very different things that can mean. Thank you for talking about our parks and the fact that our parks are better off in this proposal than last year, but there is still work to do. Thank you for talking about the core services our city provides in those back end spaces we don't often talk about, like PP&D and many other services that we heard about tonight. Thank you for talking about our roads and the different ways we make our roads safe and what it really means to provide what Portlanders need. We are going to take all of this back. I think all three of us were furiously in our different styles taking notes on everything that you all said. And we will make sure that these guide us. One of you said up here in your testimony that you were glad we were hearing you out. This tonight is not hearing you out. This is getting our marching orders. So thank you for our marching orders. We will do our best, knowing that there are contradictions in the room, that there are different values our communities bring forward. We will do our best to get the best budget we can for all of you, and we will keep working on it because in a cuts year, it's never going to be perfect, to make sure that next year and the year after, we're in a better place than we are this year and we can have better conversations. I think I turn it over to Amanda now to wrap us up so we can get you all home before we get too late.
Thank you. And thank you all for spending the evening here, sharing your thoughts with counselors and hearing from your fellow Portlanders. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we will be sharing out a recording of this meeting on the city's website.